Euzu billahi mineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve hlul min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamünaleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah, we will continue with our discussions on 10th word, which is about the hereafter and resurrection, and the parts that we are reading, these aspects, 12 aspects we will read. Inshallah, we are start with the 10th today. So 3 more go. These 10 aspects is studying the hereafter, but is taking a different approach than we used to hear, which is studying here and trying to understand hereafter. Studying now and trying to understand later. So that's the approach. And so far in the 9 aspects, previous 9 aspects, we studied how science in the creation points to the necessity of the existence of hereafter, a Supreme Court, Judgment Day. And also we said in parallel to the signs in creation, perfectly fitting to them, the scripture from the same source, the creation is a product, or let's say the art of the creator. The scripture is the speech of the creator. So coming from the same source, hence we expect them to fit to each other perfectly, and it does. When you look at the scripture, it says the same thing. That there is a Supreme Court, there is a judgment day, there is resurrection, and so on. And then we also look at the messages carried by the prophets other than scripture, in addition to scripture, what they said, how they lived their life, and also saints or scholars. Anybody who is serious about studying where we are going to, they always concluded that there must be another realm that we are headed towards. There must be a Supreme Court, there must be a judgment day, and so on. So all these different paths cross at the hereafter. So author was saying that, we have all these different reasons, evidences for the hereafter. And inshallah, we will continue with the 10th aspect. And what do you think, Mohammed? You are in good shape to read? In a good mood? Okay, do you mind reading the 10th aspect, please, in a slow pace? Yeah.
Today is the vernal equinox.
With higher, yeah.
By the way, we just did have an equinox.
Oh.
So I don't know what the official name of that equinox is. Fall equinox?
Maybe.
Okay.
He's talking about the spring one.
Yeah. Come, today is the vernal equinox. Certain changes will take place. And okay. So for the vernal equinox, it says Manalarma. Okay. Yeah. Can everybody hear us all right?
Oh, there's no one.
Oh. All right. The audience of the future. Just messing with me. All right.
Being recorded and streamed, so yeah, we need your voice.
So the footnote there is you will find what this aspect alludes to in the 9th truth. The vernal equinox is equivalent to the beginning of spring. As for the green plain covered with flowers, this is the face of the earth in springtime. The changing scenes and spectacles are an allusion to the different groups of vernal beings, the classes of summer creation, and the sustenance for men and animals that the all-powerful and glorious Maker the all-wise and beauticious Creator, from the beginning of spring to the end of summer, brings forth in orderly succession, renews with the utmost compassion, and dispatches uninterruptedly. Certain changes will take place, and wondrous things will occur. On this fine spring day, let us go for a walk on the green plain adorned with beautiful flowers. See, other people are also coming toward it. There must be some magic at work, for buildings that were mere ruins have suddenly sprung up again here, and this once empty plain has become like a populous city. See, every hour it shows a different scene, just like a cinema screen, and takes on a different shape. But notice too that among these complex, swiftly changing, and multifarious scenes, perfect order exists, so that all things are put in their proper places. The imaginary scenes presented to us on the cinema screen cannot be as well ordered as this, and millions of skilled magicians would be incapable of this artistry. This monarch whom we cannot see must then have performed even greater miracles. O foolish one, you ask, how can this vast kingdom be destroyed and re-established somewhere else? You see that every hour numerous changes and revolutions occur, just like that transfer from one realm to another that your mind will not accept. From this gathering in and scattering forth, it can be deduced that a certain purpose is concealed within these visible and swift joinings and separations, these compoundings and dissolvings. 10 years of effort would not be devoted to a joining together destined to last no longer than an hour. So these circumstances we witness cannot be ends in themselves. They are a kind of parable of something beyond themselves, in imitation of it. That exalted being brings them about in miraculous fashion, so that they take shape and then merge, and the result is preserved and recorded in just the same way that every aspect of a maneuver and the battleground is written down and recorded. This implies the proceedings at some great concourse and meeting will be based on what happens here. Further, the result of all that occurs here will be permanently displayed at some supreme exposition. All the transient and fluctuating phenomena we see here will yield the fruit of eternal and immutable form. All the variations we observe in this world are then, for the sake of a supreme happiness, a lofty tribunal, for the sake of exalted aims as yet unknown to us.
So, any initial comments? This aspect is about the change in general, and the author is using this vernal, or let's say spring equinox. How do you say it? Equinox. Okay. The springtime as an example where constant change happens almost every hour, and how order within this change points to something greater than or something beyond these instances that we observe. And also he talked about the end goal, or where everything goes toward. So if there's no initial comments or question, I will start from the beginning and then we can discuss. certain changes will take place and wondrous things will occur in the springtime. It says, on this fine spring day, let us go for a walk on the green plain adorned with beautiful flowers. See, other people are also coming toward it. That part is interesting by itself. Like the things in the creation attracts attention. That the people go toward it. Like it says, see, other people are also coming toward it. Let's see certain changes, the person said, and let's other people also coming. So what is in the creation is not something plain. And whatever happens, it always attracts an attention, especially in the springtime. There must be some magic at work, for buildings that were mere ruins have suddenly sprung up again here, and this once empty plain has become like a populous city. And I guess it's easy to see that happening in springtime, right? We are trying to teach Bushra about the seasons. She wants winter to come because she thinks she will play with snow. But when it snows, she's reluctant. She does not even touch. But anyway, maybe this year it will be different. So we say, you see all these trees, all the leaves will go down, they will become naked. And then we continue about the winter. But when you think about the spring, like all this nakedness disappears again. And they clothe the finest dresses. So this renewal, I think it's even more than renewal, right? It's more like starting from scratch every time. Things are being destroyed and then recreated. See, every hour shows a different scene, just like a cinema screen, and takes on a different shape. Notice too that among these complex, swiftly changing and multifarious scenes, perfect order exists, so that all things are put in their proper places. The imaginary scenes presented to us on the cinema screen cannot be as well ordered as this. Even a cinema screen, you don't see that much order. Millions of skilled magicians would be incapable of this artistry. This monarch whom we cannot see must then have performed even greater miracles. So any comment about this order, why it is worth to mention, why author is talking about the order?
I have a comment.
Oh, please, yeah.
It's interesting that when we examine, let's say, winter approaching, we see some, as you said, some of it just completely like destroyed, right? Not even like renewed, it's just completely like destroyed. But then there's also, for example, evergreen trees that remain intact, that remain green all throughout. And so it poses the question of, well, this is kind of continuing in terms of the life it's being given, whereas this one's life is being taken. And so I see a manifestation of choice there, of why is this being destroyed, because it must be intentionally being done so rather than out of some sort of necessity, right? And so that manifestation of choice also invites me to investigate why this choice is being made, or what the purpose behind that choice.
That's a great point. Like, with such exceptions, I guess we are reminded that whatever you see, don't call them as natural. There's always a choice behind. The same thing goes with, I guess, disorders or diseases, right? The majority of human beings are born with two arms, but there are exceptions. So it shows that it's not about some natural laws or anything. It's a choice. It's a choice being made. For most of your life, you are healthy, but sometimes you are not healthy. There's always a choice there. There are some people that are unhealthy from birth. You see, there is a choice there. So I think this is extremely important.
I think the illusion of cinema freedom is distinct to me because of the way that like a moving image is created with a series of stills. So it's not just like one continuous image that's like always there. It's something that's constantly being refreshed. So the idea that the creation is constantly being created and manifested. It's not something that's just like on there on its own, like statically like existing on its own. It's having to be supported and created at every moment.
And also, the same way you said, so these still images coming together, right, one by one. So their order, for instance, this temporal order, could be just random, right? These are just images. They are independent of each other. So you can shuffle, let's say, the movie frames, and it wouldn't mean anything then. It would be just random images that you see. You wouldn't get any story out of it, right? So the order of things is something other than the frames. Like there are frames, but there is also their organization, their order. So order is also being created on top of individual frames. The same goes with the creation as well. Like when you watch, for instance, I think from his childhood, you will probably have some funny moments there. From his childhood to adulthood, the order of frames are perfectly made. You don't see he becoming taller and then shorter and then shorter and then taller and then taller and then shorter, taller. So the creation has an order, both within individual frame, right? The spatial, let's say, the order. There's also this temporal order as well, the way we observe them. So order is there in every aspect that you see. And I can sense Yusuf will say something about that part.
I was looking at a verse which was very interesting. This author is making an interesting statement here. So in Surah Baqarah, there are 3 verses, one after the other, that are talking about resurrection. One is like 258, 259, 260. 258 is the conversation between Ibrahim alayhi salam and this king, Nemrut. 259 is talking about a man, and I'll read the translation really quick. Or are you a man of the same mind? I am reading one of the translations. As he who passed by a town deserted by its people, with its roofs caved in. And you can check this verse. It's really interesting. Verse 259, if you would like to look at it your phone. 259. How could God bring all this back to life after its death? The guy is saying. Thereupon, God caused him to be dead for 100 years. Thereafter, he brought him back to life and said, how long have you remained thus? He answered, I have remained thus a day or part of a day. And God said, no, but you have remained thus for 100 years. But look at your food and your drink, untouched as it is by the passing of years. And look at your donkey. And there's a parenthesis in the translation. We did all this so that we might make you a symbol unto men. And look at the bones, how we put them together and then clothe them with flesh. And when all this became clear to him, he said, I know now that God has the power to will anything. This was very interesting because it's these verses one after the other. And the verse after this one is Ibrahim alayhi salam asking the question, oh Allah, how do you resurrect the dead? Then the Creator says, don't you believe? He says, I do, but to find the satisfaction in my heart. Maybe you remember that verse. So in this verse, the interesting thing is, this is very similar to what author is doing in here. I can, actually this 100% applies to me. I can take this to be me, the Creator speaking to me, because I go through a city where it is just in ruins and its roofs are upside down. This is just my environment in the fall. Like all the trees are upside down, everything is rotting. And you ask that question, who is going to resurrect this? And then the answer is, it's very interesting. So the verse then says, فَأَمَاتَهُ اللَّهُ مِئَةَ عَامٍ ثُمَّ بَعَثَهُ. Then Allah killed him 100 years. Like killing someone 100 years is a weird way of saying it. And today I was listening to a lecture, and in there, when he's talking about Nuh alayhi salam's life, the Creator says, خَمْسِينَ أَلْفَ سَنَةً إِلَّا أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا خَمْسِينَ عَامًا. So the word for the sana is used for the 1,000 years, but 50 years. But for the first 1,000 years, he uses sana. For the 50 years, he uses am. And the Khatib was saying that what's the distinction between the two? Within the same sentence, two words are used to refer to year. One is sana, the other one is am. So if the words are different, meaning should be different. So he gave this extra information saying that sana means hard years with hardship. Am means year with blessings. So here, the word that's used is am. So he is killed for 100 years in bliss, which is like every year you are changing your whole body. Like that death, if you think about my physical body, my body is renewing every year. So death is happening for this body. That physical body is not what you had 1 year ago. It's completely renewed with all its components. So 1 year ago's body is destroyed and a new body came. So it's a death that have gradually occurred, but you are still you are. So it's an am in this sense, like it's a blissful death. It's not like an annihilating death. So as if now the Creator is giving me the example that you have been killed and resurrected 100 times already, blissfully. And then my Creator asks me, how long have you stayed like this? I would say, like if I ask you, how long have you been living? Does it feel like 30 years, 20 years, or is it like a blink of an eye? This is our response. And this is the source of our, if you like, ignorance. Because I feel like, why do I say resurrection does not happen? Because I feel like although I have been living for 100 years or 30 years, as if it's a blink of an eye. This is the reason of my ignorance. The constant change was there. This 50 aman, 100, in this case, 100 aman, 100 years of blissful death and resurrection was happening gradually, but real time. but I felt like as if it is constant time. This is why I am asking this question, who is going to resurrect this? But then the Creator says, look at yourself, look at your food. Your food is still there. It keeps happening like throughout 100 years. I kept giving you this food. Where did this come from? I renewed it, right? You think like you are not renewed. How about your food? This food is this year's new product. Where did this come from? This was not with you for the 100 years. It keeps changing, right? If you don't see the change within yourself, look at what your food is, or look at what your donkey is like. These are the things you changed multiple times in your life. Who gave it continuously? If you don't see the constant change on yourself, see the constant change in your environment, with the things in which you are constantly interacting with. You're eating grape this year, but this is not the product of last year. It's a new grape. So you're having a new car because my Passat was old and I replaced it for buying a new car. So it was old. So a new constant changes.
It was not old. It
was perfect.
Yeah, for others to benefit.
Yeah. So then he says, finally, covering bones with flesh. So I think this can apply to, like, I do observe it in my son. I do observe it in like this constant changes happening in me. So he's saying that this resurrection is ongoing. So this is a very beautiful verse, and the author must have benefited from such verses, which is attracting our attention to the creation, the signs out there. And because when I read this verse before, some tafsir is saying that this is such and such person, he was killed and resurrected 100 years later, and this is his story. But his story is not helping me in this regard. It's just some person is dead and I didn't observe what he observed, so it's not becoming a confirmation of truth for me. So for me to be bearing witness to truthfulness of this, if you put yourself in it, actually, it's exactly talking about you. And this is why author in here is talking about a metaphor. Life is a metaphor, the way he puts it, actually. He said, these things are parables. Where was it?
The Quran also talks about the parables, right? With these two ayahs that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, what is it? Oh, he doesn't say, look at this parable, but it's like he's.
So that we make you as a sign for the humans is also in this verse. But within this text, the author was even taking it to the extent that the springtime is a parable of a truth, which means your life is a parable of a truth. Like the life I live in, I am living with my son, with my wife. But the author is saying that living with your wife, with your son, is a parable of a truth. I would say, well, this must be the truth itself. As if we are living the life for the purpose of enjoying, like, why do you have a family? Why do you have a son? Why do you work? Because I enjoy it. But he's saying, no, it is a parable of a truth. Like this is why you would take movies, right? What's the purpose of a movie? Movie has a message to deliver. Movie is not a movie in and of itself. It's delivering a message. And now he's taking this life with the spring and summer and my life as a parable of a truth. Now take this aside and talk about Quran itself. Quran is also telling me about my truth, about the purpose of existence. So everything in there, in this regard, must be carrying that message, like the truth. In a sense, yeah, I guess we are trying to reach the truth, and everything then becomes a parable of truth.
It's like a dream, right? Sometimes you have these vivid dreams, like a movie-like dreams. You live in this dream, but you know, especially even if not during the dream, but after you wake up, you know, whatever this happened in your dream, it's not the point. The point is what you understand from your dream. Like you've been put in this, the movie-like creation so that you experience something and you learn from it. I guess you can apply the same thing to your life as well. Like you're having a day with your child. She's happy or she's sad, you have a fight, doesn't matter. Whatever happens, it's not the point. The point is what you get out of it. Where you find yourself after reading this thing happening in you, in front of you. So when Prophet Suleiman, yeah, when he sends a letter to the queen of this strange land, he tells the bird, the hudhud, give this letter to her, take a step back, and watch where she will return, where her return to be, like this kind of, the sentence he says. So it's the same thing. Like the point is, we get this letter, something is created in front of us, and the question is where our return will be when we read this letter, the speech of the creator. So my moments with this sweet guy, yes, it is enjoyable and so on and so forth, but it's not the point, because I will be destroyed, he will be destroyed, may God forbid. Everything I experience will perish. So the point is what I get out of it. It's not what I experience. Whether my daughter raised her voice or not, the point is what was my understanding from that. Did I become a better person or worse? Did I become closer to my Lord or farther away? I guess that's the point. What I learned about my creator. He's just an actor in my movie, right? I'm another actor, the better one, of course. But it's just like, like a movie, what you get out of it.
I think on this point of what you get out of life, it coincides really well with the point he made about how how the result of everything is preserved. Like let's see the trees in the fall, and then in the winter into the spring. Even though all of their leaves disappear and they return again, it's still the same tree. And much like us human beings, like Yusuf said about how we regenerate all of our cells, like me 7 years ago was physically 100% different from me today, but I'm still me, and I still have all of my thoughts and personality, maybe a few changes here and there recorded, but it's still the same thing. And what's to say that later on, everything that we may have thought was long past, like we did so and so, or we thought so and so, or we didn't get something out of a certain opportunity, who's to say that that's not also recorded within us? We experience so many things, and we may or may not find the messages that are behind them yet. Those interactions in our daily lives with whatever experiences these are, they must also be recorded as part of us, even if we experience change, even if we turn into dust and bone, let's say like the donkey in the ayah tadi, in the previous ayah. And that is phenomenal, because that the realization that all of that is stuck with you means that no matter how you think you change, no matter no matter how we feel that we are going to eventually disappear in the future or not. All of these moments, they're part of us, and they will be recorded and written and stuck to us for eternity. And perhaps we will be made responsible for that later. So that ties in very well with how we try to come up with the confirmation that everything that we will do will eventually be on our account. Careful.
Any other comments, questions? So we will give a break in 5 minutes. So before break, it would be great to hear your comments. And then we can read the second paragraph after that. So I know Atik has some thoughts. He's just not sure to share or not. And here's your encouragement to share your thoughts.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will continue reading. O foolish one, you ask, how can this West kingdom be destroyed and re-established somewhere else? You see that every hour, numerous changes and revolutions occur. Just like that transfer from one realm to another that your mind will not accept. From this gathering in and scattering forth, it can be deduced that a certain purpose is concealed within these visible and swift joinings and separations, these compoundings and dissolvings. 10 years of effort wouldn't be devoted to a joining together destined to last no longer than an hour. So I'm trying to understand, help me. He says, look at everything, they come together and then dissolve, right? And this happens very within a moment. You wouldn't expect that all this planning was done just for a minute-long, I don't know, a gathering. So there must be another reason, he says. So give me an example from life when he says gathering and scattering.
Movie industry. Like in Hollywood, to record like 5 minutes of a scene, they build a let's say Jurassic Park. When they were taking Jurassic Park, maybe they're going to record that dinosaur, half of a dinosaur. They build it up. Only that dinosaur is going to appear in 3 seconds. But they build it up from scratch, and then after recording this 3 seconds, they destroy the scene. So what's the point? If you just say that, well, it was nice, we built it just for building, we enjoyed it.
I see. So the same way, I guess, when you look at the flower blossom, right? It takes only a few minutes, maybe, or so after the blossom, it will take like a few weeks, maybe, and then it will disappear. So what is the point? There must be an end goal of these author says, right? Okay, let's have a break here. We will come back and continue discussing these gatherings and scattering. Think about it, please. I'm not still 100% clear about this part, so I need some examples, especially from this side. Let's continue in 10 minutes, inshallah. Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Selamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we will continue from the second paragraph. So, O foolish one, you ask how can this West Kingdom be destroyed and reestablished somewhere else? So that was the question, and we can, I guess, easily see how we do ask such questions when it comes to resurrection, assuming that this world will be destroyed. I guess it's not that hard that the things being destroyed. Even the craziest ones say, the aliens will invade, kill us all, or sun will explode and destroy Earth. So destruction is not, I guess, hard to imagine, but everything being renewed, recreated, reestablished, and also reestablished somewhere else. Right? When we say, when we think of the resurrection, we usually don't think it's taking place on this earth. Just say, it will be another realm. It's something else. Like whatever we have here, whether you call it soul, spirit, whatever, it will be transferred to somewhere else. So I guess that part, reestablishing the same thing somewhere else, is the hard part to imagine.
And it's something that I guess it sounds science fiction like, and even the movies about this apocalypse is science fiction like, because it says, well, it did not happen for the past 2 billion years. So like it's as if it's a futile expectation, as if it is story like, or as if it is myth like. So a realist would ask such a question, saying that, well, it's technically possible, but like as if you're expecting for something that would just happen out of the blue. Why should such a thing happen? And not only that destruction would happen, you are saying, on top of that, you're saying that a much nicer realm is going to be established. So it is so myth and science fiction like would be I guess, the realist approach. So this is why I guess that question is there. And I mean, considering that religion is for controlling the masses, and this is why they come up with those scary stories. I mean, if you put that lens, which is not too alien to us, then such a question becomes quite commonplace.
I mean, yeah, especially considering about this sociological, psychological aspects as well. It is being used for masses, right? There's no denial there. Like especially for in this, the country, black people, when they were experiencing slavery, they've been told that yes, you are living a terrible life here, but don't worry, you will have heaven hereafter. So just wait for it. So that was the main, I guess, the teaching of Christianity in churches to control these black masses, or let's say non-white masses. And I think we can find the similar stories in every culture. Hereafter being used for controlling masses. And yes, we making your life miserable, making this life our heaven, stealing all your money, all your life. But don't worry, you will get the heaven in hereafter. So that's a fact, like that's being misused, but it becomes such a, I guess, nonsensical controlling device when you take hereafter as something will happen in future with no evidence or whatever, no evidence whatsoever here now, and there's no connection between what you have now and what you will get later. When this is the case, yes, it's a nonsensical controlling device. But the author takes hereafter as something that we have glimpses here in this moment as well.
I guess in this regard, we can take it two ways. The first is when Quran talks about this resurrection or apocalypse, it talks multiple stages of it. It's everywhere. It's happening day by day. It's so actually there's even a joke, a real joke, story of a joke of Nasreddin Hoca. So it says, when my wife dies, the small apocalypse happens. When I die, the big apocalypse happens. So like your apocalypse is your death, but also as everything in this universe dies, the whole universe is also going to die. So just it's a similar pattern, or actually during the prayer, as Red was reciting the verse, this is manifestation of the same names. It's manifesting itself in a orange in 2 weeks. It dies in 2 weeks if you take it off from the tree. It happens on you on 60 years or 70 years. For a planet, it takes, I don't know, a few million years of stars, but it's happening. So likewise, resurrection is also happening. So it's not only that death is happening, the apocalypse is happening, but also resurrection is happening. So this is why, if you don't see it on yourself, look at the spring. And in the verse that we read, if you don't see it on yourself, look at the food that you eat, look at your donkey. It keeps changing, don't you see it? Because when it comes to your life, although you have been resurrected 100 times, you still feel like it's blinking of an eye, although it is 100 years. Look at your food, look at your donkey. They don't change. Like they still are there, although they changed multiple times in your life. The resurrection is everywhere, which I should be saying that, oh, then when my apocalypse happens, another resurrection awaits. It's a very beautiful example of reading signs from the creation.
So I guess when we talk about the Supreme Court judgment, you can also take them as, in this life, you have small examples of them, tiny instances of them, right? You see that whatever you do, good or bad, you always, see their outcomes, not necessarily completely or fully, but there's no such life in which you do all the terrible things and then you live happily ever after, until you die without any, consciousness of what you did, without having any, let's say, sense of responsibility or so on. So I cannot imagine such a life. At least it doesn't happen for me. When I do something bad, or when I do a lot of bad things, they usually accumulate and face me later in my life. So I can take such moments as tiny Supreme Courts, maybe.
And again, I will refer to the verse that Fred read during the prayer. So it was if this Quran was revealed to a mountain, you will see it just crushing and becoming sand out of awe of the Creator. And this is a example or metaphor for the people to think about. And then starts describing the Creator. Says, He is Allah, other than which there is no ilah, no deity. He is the seer of the unseen and like alimul ghayb wa shahad and whatever. Starts describing the Creator. So it's as if a perfect example of what this example over here is doing. A mountain is as a metaphor for you. If you take Quran and the truth you learn from Quran, if you apply it to a mountain, you will see it to be crushing and starting to become divine names starting appearing from them. Like think of it like, let's say there are such texts who makes an analysis of, let's say, War and Peace or Crime and Punishment. When you read Crime and Punishment, it reads like a story. Somebody's given something or whatever. And when you read it, not with a ignorant eye, but with what does the author mean here, they say, oh, Raskolnikov represents this. Killing of this woman represents this and means that. So when you look at it from this lens, it starts getting crushed into pieces and starts speaking to you its message. It's not the guy Raskolnikov anymore, but it's a message. So when I apply the same to this creation with the lens of the Quran, mountain is not going to look like a mountain to you anymore, but it's going to crumble into pieces and names of the Creator will start coming out. When I look at the spring, oh, I love spring, I love the the flowers and whatever. No, spring will become the beautiful, like Jamil, and then will become the Sani, the artist. So everything will start popping up from the creation. So the creation itself will become a metaphor, and it will start speaking its truth to me. That's why that verse is very beautiful, saying that if that Quran was to be revealed on top of a mountain, it will crumble into dust, and then, as the following verses say, divine names will start appearing, which means Quran is given to you. Apply it to the creation, to the mountain, to yourself, and then you will start seeing.
So you mean, look at the mountain, read the mountain with the glasses given by Quran, and then you will see there is no mountain anymore, but the creation of the Creator, the art of the Creator. It will be crushed, meaning there will be no mountain anymore, but you will see only beautiful names of your Creator there.
So, for example, they say for the Lord of the Rings, when Tolkien was writing it, it was within a certain context of First World War, the industrial sector.
There is no third world war.
I think it was first, I said.
You said first.
First.
Okay, I thought you said third.
No, first.
Okay.
So then it's industrial revolution, and he's in this mindset. And for example, for the dwarfs, you say it represents Jews. So let's say you get this perspective. So you heard it somewhere. And then when you are rewatching the movie or reading the book, now you start reading it from that perspective. Well, if he meant Jews by the dwarfs, what did he mean by the dragon? What did he mean by this and that? Then everything becomes, once you get into this aspect of it, no more doors left for you, because now you are realizing that it's just a set of metaphor, and what's its truth. So I take this life so real. Don't take its, this is the ignorance part, I guess. If I take it as a metaphor, then I will realize aftermath. So my denial or tendency to be in denial towards resurrection is because I take this life as the thing, rather than taking it as a metaphor for a truth behind it.
metaphor that represents something which, like going back to text, so these circumstances we witness cannot be ends in themselves. They are a kind of parable of something beyond themselves. What you experience in this life is not the thing that you should be worried about. It's what they represent.
So they, in this sense, we can also take akhirah as there is an after aspect of everything. There is an eternal aspect of everything. Because otherwise, flower will rot and it's gone. But it must have an after. Otherwise, it's rotten and it's just gone for nothing. But if it was beautiful, if it's gone for nothing, then there shouldn't have been any beauty. Like something getting into non-existence doesn't make sense, incomprehensible. So it doesn't fit with the reality that we're living.
So they are kind of parable of something beyond themselves and imitation of it. So yeah, the ahira is whatever you get from the creation, whatever you understand from the creation, this is your ahira. That exalted being brings them about in miraculous fashion so that they take shape and then merge. The result is preserved and recorded in just the same way that every aspect of a maneuver on the battleground, is written down and recorded. This implies that proceedings at some great concourse and meeting will be based on what happens here. So the ahira is the proceeding of what happens in this world. It's like the summary. This implies that the proceedings at some great concourse and meeting will be based on what happened here.
I think there's an issue with the translation here. So that exalted being brings them about in miraculous fashion so that they take shape and then merge, and the result is preserved and recorded. The problem starts here in just the same way that every aspect of the maneuver field of so in the previous aspects, he was talking about a maneuver field of test, and everything was being recorded in there. The agents of the government was recording them. So he's referring to that previous part of the metaphor here, just as the every aspect of that maneuver field was being written down and recorded. What was the purpose? He was questioning it there. What's the purpose of that recording? Because it's going to be shown elsewhere. So he's now referring to that. So the translation is open.
This implies that proceedings at some great concourse and meeting will be based on what happened here. Further, the results of all that occurs here, So what is the result of, she's sleeping? It's not that, she gets bigger and she gets healthier. I think the result here refers to what I understand from it, what it tells me about my creator. That's the result, I guess. When you look at her sleeping and you say that, oh, my beautiful child is sleeping, and that's it, then your hereafter is just emptiness of this moment of hereafter of this moment of yours is just emptiness.
In essence, this is putting another perspective, like saying that similar to what I say to students, I say that if whatever, to the extent you learn this so fundamental course in your undergrad, it's going to be with you in the rest of your career. So if you mess it up right now, what are you going to do when you get into the job? So, because sometimes we take afterlife paradise as, Irkan, who is so careful about his life, and me, we will both go to paradise. If we both make there, we will enjoy the same. But the author is saying that no, you train here to the extent you get trained here, you benefit afterwards.
So we are doomed. Oh, you say speak for yourself? Okay, further, the results of all that occurs here will be permanently displayed at some supreme exposition. All the transient and fluctuating phenomena we see here will yield the fruit of eternal and immutable form. So there's no more. Right? Oh, all the variations we observe in this world.
The translation
With the previous one?
All the variations, it's not variations, it is all the celebrations.
Okay, all the celebrations we observe in this world are done for the sake of supreme happiness, a lofty tribunal for the sake of exalted aims, as yet unknown to us. For the sake of supreme happiness, a lofty tribunal for the sake of exalted aims, as yet unknown to us. So with this, all the celebrations, does he refer to all the moments of happiness that we have in this life, or?
Where he was talking about all these changes. So this is what he's meaning in there. Like ihtifalat, the word he uses in there, translator took it as ihtilafat, variation. So the ihtifal is more like, what's it? Ihtifalat is more either celebration or what did you use for the word Jumat?
Ceremony, okay, makes sense. Okay. So all this change, all these actions are part of a ceremony.
All those investment is being done.
Okay.
A lot of investment, and then everything is being swiped away. So that's what he means by that.
Okay, I see. So in that sense, like when you start looking from this perspective, actually you will see that the things are not swiped away.
They needed to be taken away. So
yes.
A new scene is going to be recorded.
Okay, the text stops here and here. So any further comments, questions, disagreements? Otherwise, we can end the discussion here. I don't mind ending it early. We have 8 more minutes.
Can I generally ask to take everybody's opinion? So today's perspective, what does it tell us? Like, what is the outcome of today's discussion? Like, is it just some philosophical explanation or proof for resurrection, or like, how is this useful for us?
What do we take home from this discussion? So if when you go home, I think, and see your mom still waiting for you and looking at you angry, like, don't you see the time? Why you are still not at home? And so what will happen after today's discussion? What will change?
Very good question.
Or Sister Mariam, like you will. Oh, okay, go ahead.
The day is over and it'll be reestablished the next day, and the same thing will repeat over and over.
I see. So what about the moment itself? Like you having these, the not hateful but angry eyes looking at you.
Yeah.
So what will happen then?
Well, she's judging me by a certain set of criteria. Maybe I can, I believe I'll be judged by a more absolute criteria. You know, not the judgments of my mother based on her own understanding of when I should arrive at home on time, but you know what I should actually be doing with my time, and whether that was a good use or not.
I see.
Sounds very good. Good excuse.
So to me, it's like next time something. So with so-called ordinary things, we usually don't have much time to think. But when something exceptional happens, like you have a fight, for instance, or you have a beautiful moment, your son starts laughing at you with no reason, and then comes and hugs you, then I guess you ask yourself, what does my creator tell me now? Do I know my creator as the most merciful, most loving one? If this is the case, then I can take this to my hereafter, right? As an investment. Now, when I die, I know that I will be judged by the all merciful, all loving one. But if I cannot get from this experience, I cannot get this result, the fruit, then when I go to my hereafter, my creator will not be merciful and all loving one for me, from my perspective at least.
I said something, I guess.
Oh, Suhail says, living with the resurrection here and now in my everyday experiences of life.
I think this maybe this perspective can give me a lens to look at life with an afterthought. Let me change the word afterlife to afterthought, saying that what does this allude to? Because there was this person talking about a movie called Shape of Water. I guess it's a recent movie. I don't know if you have seen it.
I heard it, but anyway.
Anyways, this guy says, when I first saw the movie, he says, he was I guess he was like a cleric, a Christian cleric. Says, after the movie finished, I said the person sitting next to me that this movie is going to get Oscar. Then he says, the reason is, what is water and the shape of water? It is shapeless. Its shape is whatever shape you give to it. So it's a movie about a relativism and your own truth. There is no absolute truth. It's all about you. So taking it like this, then I went to watch the movies, what's it, the trailer and whatnot. It's just seemingly an action movie sort of a thing. Like there's this weird creature made with fish-like, fish, human, whatever. But looking at it this way, if I were to watch the movie right now, it's not a science fiction-y movie anymore for me. So is life an end in and of itself? Or, so I guess if I can get accustomed to this way of thinking, I should be looking for life. If it's not the end in itself, what does it point to? What is its purpose? So I guess having this lens of an afterthought starts embedding the idea of afterlife in me much real. Otherwise, when I get lost in my students, what grade I give to them and what they told me, and I mean, this back and forth, I get stuck in there and I die. I truly die. This sort of a life really puts me into an eternal doom or non-existence, because at the end of the day, everything finishes. So I guess this, if I can, from this text, take that there is an after of everything. Don't get lost in the moment itself. And this is happening like when I see sunset, as it was Nav inviting me to. This is a death, because he gave the example of his spring, but I can extrapolate it right now to a day is finishing, I walk from work to home, and on my way, I see the sun is setting. So it's a reminder that, oh, this was resurrected in the morning and now it's being killed again. Likewise, I am going through the same. So where do we go to?
I think it's a lot like how we are prompted to analyze literature, like in classes when we read text. They're like, oh, the author means this and this by this sentence. He means this and this. Oh, you didn't understand it. That's because you don't know the context. Blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah. Right. So, and that's just a book made by a human being. There's so much deliberate thought into each word that's being put in each sentence, or let's say a film. A scene that's 3 seconds, 5 seconds long has a symbolic meaning. Maybe the color is off a bit and that symbolizes something. A lot of people dig deep into those things, right? And that's just something human made, and humans are only so limited in their capacity to give deliberate meaning into every little frame of a movie. And what about the Quran, for example? How come we don't really see it as something that has a very potent personal context that we have to find deliberately, and we have to try to figure out, what is this saying to me? And it's not only for the Quran, which is obviously from the creator, and every little detail, of course, has some meaning to us, but everything in our lives as well. So yeah, the little things, as Brother Burkan said. What do I get from this? Like, after we read a piece of literature, we read a reading for the next class. If you read it without the lens of trying to find something, then you go to class without anything, and we can't discuss anything, let's say, in that class. Much like in this world, if we don't see things, if we don't get something out of every little moment, then what do we bring to class?
Oh, Suhal says, thinking about the eternal aspect of things in the here and now is liberating from the anxiety of transient life. So I guess this is really extremely important, because our life is full of anxiety, because there's no one moment that we reach what we want. So it's always as if something is missing, something is missing. We should go here, we should go there. This should happen this way or that way. We are missing every moment. The result of our moments is empty. So we don't have anything in our hands. As if I'm just getting old and my years are passing without leaving me anything behind. This is our life. But when you see that with every moment, whether it seems beautiful or not, whether it fits to what you want or not, with every moment, there's an afterthought. There's a message. If you extract this message, then your bags are full of meaning. And when you die, you say, I lived a fulfilled life. It doesn't matter you being here or there. It doesn't matter you were married this guy or that woman. Whatever happened in your life was full of speech from your creator, and you know your creator. And that's end of the story. Like that's the only thing you can get. Then your hereafter is full of fruits of what you had in this life. But otherwise, the time passes, you have nothing, and you die, you see nothing. It's emptiness. That's the hell. May Allah protect us. May Allah protect us from fire. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم